Hello everyone. In this class is going to be a 20-minute healing yoga, perfect for Valentine's Day or just genuinely. For a lot of self-love, self-healing, or just to regularly enjoy a nice yoga practice. Starting off in the middle of our mat in an easy seated pose. Elbows to knees and hands to Ane Mudra. Eyes closed if you'd like. Whether or not you'd like a pillow under yourself for comfort and support. Just taking in some nice deep breaths to ground ourselves. Now on your next inhale, and while keeping your eyes closed if you'd like, we're just going to stretch out the inner part of our elbows, releasing any tension that we may have in our arms. So gripping by the fingers and pressing through so we feel a nice stretch in our inner elbow. And now sweeping one arm up and overhead, looking past our arm to keep our chest open, and sweeping back around to the other side. Adding some movement to our upper body, our lower back. We're staying completely grounded with both our seat bones. One should not be lifted higher than the other. And now returning back to center, reaching up tall with our spine. Yes, I was being harassed by flies. Walking your hands as far forward as you can, staying in our seated position. We're just adding a bit of a forward fold to stretch out our hips, our glutes, our inner thighs, and to get a bit of a reach with our back. Feel free to bend through the elbows. Just make sure that you are bending from your hips and not your lower spine. Now gently sitting back up, shifting your way around, laying back on your mat and bringing your knees to chest. If you'd like to interlock fingers, or if it just feels nicer to grab onto your knees. Maybe you'd like to rock side to side, adding a nice gentle massage to your lumbar spine. Being sure to keep your upper body nice and relaxed. If it feels nicer just to be in stillness, by all means, but if it feels nicer and more soothing to rock side to side, by all means keep the motion going. Now from here, flex your feet, grab onto the outsides of your feet and coming into happy baby. Try to press the shoulders to the mat as much as you can, remaining relaxed with the upper body, and feel free to keep the rocking motion going. Feeling a nice release in our hips and our inner thigh. If it again just feels nicer to remain still, by all means, but you can keep the rocking going if it feels nice on your lumbar spine. Now releasing your legs and coming into a right side spinal twist. Your left leg comes across. It's not important if your knee doesn't reach the ground. What's more important is the sensations and the stretch you feel in your back, your spine, your surrounding muscles. So feel free to bring your opposite hand to your leg to support, and feel free to look over your left shoulder, even with your eyes closed. Now coming back through to center, coming into a forward stretch, your left ankle over your right knee and grabbing behind your right knee. Upper body is relaxed and feeling a nice stretch throughout our left glute. Releasing the legs and switching out sides with your spinal stretch. Right leg comes across, looking over your right shoulder if you'd like, even with your eyes closed, and feeling a really nice stretch on the other side of your back from the opposite direction. Coming back through to center, other side forward stretch. Right ankle over left knee and grabbing behind your left knee, feeling a nice stretch throughout our right side glute. Now releasing, crossing your ankles underside yourself, shifting your weight forward into a tabletop, coming into a gentle cat-cow. Now from here, shifting your knees back a little if you need to, grabbing onto the top of your mat if you'd like, but then sinking your way down to a puppy pose. And I personally like to balance up on my chin, but feel free to bring your forehead to mat. See how much you can bring your chest to the mat, making sure to keep your hips over your knees, not too far back and not too far forward. Rising back up, bringing your hands under shoulders, then lowering your waist to an upward facing dog. Shifting back to a child's pose, we're going to repeat those two movements back to back. Shift forward, upward facing dog. Shift back, child's pose. Shift forward, upward facing dog. Shift back, child's pose. Shift forward, and this time bring your left leg ahead of you into sprinter lunge, feeling a nice stretch in our right side hip flexor. Shifting back half split, feeling a nice stretch in our left hamstring and calf. Shift forward, sprinter lunge. Shift back half split. Shift forward, sprinter lunge. Shift back half split. Shift forward, sprinter lunge. Now this time rising up and coming into a three-legged dog. Left leg reaches tall, feeling a nice stretch in our right leg while we're at it. Lowering your leg, dropping your right knee, swooping your left leg behind you, left arm up and overhead, coming into a modified wild thing. Feeling a nice stretch in our left side waist, maybe a little on our abs as well. Returning your left hand to the mat, pressing back up with the legs, and swinging your left leg forward into a left side pigeon. Making all the appropriate adjustments that you need to. It's not important to have your leg parallel to the mat, that's more of a personalized goal. To make the posture easier, bring your left heel closer to your hips, but make sure that your hips are nice and squared off. Feel free to remain upright with the body, but if you can manage it, if it's within your practice, or you just like to challenge yourself, come on down to the elbows. Now rising up gently, keeping your feet right where they are, you're going to press up through your legs, coming into a T-band stretch. It's completely fine if your leg doesn't straighten all the way, lowering back down to a half pigeon and pressing back to a T-band stretch. You might find yourself adjusting your right foot a lot, including your hands, and that's completely fine. Back out to your T-band stretch, lower to a half pigeon. Press back up to a T-band stretch. And now start to wiggle your left foot to the middle of your mat, taking an adjustable step forward if need be. Rising up halfway and adjusting your way into a pyramid pose. Taking a nice deep breath here. And now wiggling your right foot around if you need to, sinking a little bit low into a high lunge, and then shifting back to a pyramid. Coming to a high lunge, back to your pyramid. Coming to a high lunge, back to your pyramid. And now pressing your way back to a high plank, chaturanga, upward facing dog. Shifting back to child's pose, and we're going to return back to those child's pose mixed upward dog. So shifting forward, upward facing dog. Shifting back, child's pose. Shift forward, upward facing dog. Shift back, child's pose. Shift forward this time, right leg ahead, sprinter lunge. Feeling a nice stretch in our left side hip flexor. Shift back, half split. Feeling a nice stretch in our right side hamstring and calf. Shift forward, sprinter lunge. Shift back, half split. Shift forward, sprinter lunge. This time rising up and pressing your way up into a three-legged dog. Right leg reaches tall and feeling a stretch in our left leg while we're at it. And lowering your leg, dropping your left knee, right leg sweeps behind, right arm up and overhead, coming into a modified wild thing. Dropping your right hand to the mat, pressing back through the legs, three-legged dog, and swinging your right leg forward, coming into a right side pigeon. Making as many adjustments as you need to. There's no rush in this posture. So feel free to remain upright or feel free to come down to your elbows. Heel closer to your hips or almost parallel to the mat. Just definitely making sure that those hips are square as they can possibly get. Now from here, pressing your way up, feet where they are, coming into a two-band stretch. Adjusting our hands back and forth if you need to as you come up and down to your pigeon. It's completely fine if one side of your pigeon is a little bit more open than the other. Pressing back up and lowering back down. Pressing back up. And now this time, wiggling your foot to the middle of your mat, taking an adjustable step forward if you need to, adjusting your way into a pyramid pose, taking a nice deep breath here, being sure to keep your hind heel lifted, adjusting your foot, your hind foot as many times as you need to. And now sinking low to a high lunge and then back to your pyramid pose. High lunge, pyramid pose. High lunge, pyramid pose. Now stepping back to a plank, chaturanga, upward facing dog. Shifting back to a downward facing dog, taking a nice deep breath here. Stepping your left leg forward now, and then adjusting your way over into a skandasana, left side skandasana. Your right leg remains long, or your left leg if you're mirroring me. Making sure that your toes are pointing up to the sky and your left elbow is digging into your left knee. Feeling a really nice opening and stretch through the inner thighs. Returning back around. So your legs are straight into a pyramid, but then you raise your left arm up and we are automatically in a reverse triangle. Bending your left knee, stepping your right leg forward, keeping your right leg straight, left knee bent, left arm is up, right arm is down, switching out the arms and switching out the legs. So we're going to switch back and forth, feeling a nice deep stretch in either of our legs. And switch to whichever side you are on. And switch one more time, so that your right knee is bent, left leg is straight. Right arm is up, left hand's down. Step your left leg back. Straighten your right leg, and we are automatically in our other side reverse triangle. Right hand down, taking the time you need now to lower yourself down into a right side skandasana. Apologies, I have my back to you. Making sure that your left toes are flexed and up to the sky. Feeling a nice deep release with our hips and our inner thighs. Now pressing your way back on up and shifting your way back to a downward facing dog. From here, one breath, then start to walk forward about 4 to 6 steps to a forward fold. So rising up about halfway and coming to a standing forward fold. Then heel toe your toes out, heels in, lower your hips, dig both your elbows into your knees and coming into a malasana, our yogic squat. Remaining as straight as you can with your back. Now from here, gently and safely launching back, coming into a ball posture. Feel free to just grab onto your knees, but if you'd like to actually interlock your fingers around your legs, maybe you weren't really able to at the beginning of class, see how well you can manage now. You should be a lot more open. So rocking side to side still if that feels really nice. And then straighten your legs out, coming into our final resting posture, Shavasana. And now beginning to wiggle fingers and toes. Taking in some nice deep breaths, rolling over to your fetal position. Then gradually sit on up to the middle of your mat in an easy seated pose, just like the way we started. Feel free to add a pillow underside yourself if that feels nice, for better comfort. Once you're there, raising your hands up above your head, all that positive, beautiful, pure energy above you, bring it on down to yourself. Thank yourself so much for feeling great, for adding some strength, some stretching, some self-love and self-care, for self-healing. Thank you all so much for watching and or flowing. I do appreciate it either way, and I shall see you all for my future videos. Namaste.